Hey guys, I am so excited about this book that we are going to be starting today. It is a little bit different. It's what we call an anthology, which is just a collection of written works. So it's not exactly like a novel, and its chapters are actually each individual stories. So it's just really awesome. Other anthologies have, poetry or even musical compositions, but this one is all fictional short stories. And it's filled with some amazing authors. So I hope you are excited as I am. Our first story is called Grace, and this is in the book called Take the Mic, Fictional Stories of Everyday Resistance. And again, this is written by several authors, but the person that edited this book is Bethany C. Morrow. All right, our first story we're going to read is by Darcie Little Badger called Grace. If you're following along, we are starting on page 1. When I was very young, Mama taught me 3 things. 1. Someday we'll go home. It's there, waiting. Never really stolen. But until then, we gotta live like a pair of dandelion fluffs in the wind and drift around until the day comes to settle and grow. 2. I'm alive because my great-grandma, great-great-grandma, and great-great-great-grandma resisted the men who tried to round them up and kill them or steal everything that mattered. Even when it meant hiding in plain sight, surviving in small enclaves that the world figured we all died. It hadn't always been that way. Once, my people helped the settlers and trusted their promises of friendship. But then Texas got incorporated into the United States, and that meant my people were suddenly unwelcome in our own home. 3. I'm Lippin Apache. Mama has been teaching me what that third fact means all my life. No matter where my family travels and who we encounter, I am Lipan. I was born on Ojibwe land in a winter so bitter, my earliest memory is the feeling of cold. Mama says I showed the loons how to really cry, and sometimes the birds and I screamed at each other like we were sparring with our voices. 4 years later, my mama remarried on Celtic land. She held my hand during the airplane trip, my first, and when we landed, we cried together. I cried because I was tired and grumpy. She cried because she felt like a rubber band stretched too tight. Since her body was rooted to the land, an entire ocean away. That's what she claims anyway. She was probably just tired and grumpy too. We spent 2 weeks in Limerick to visit my new grandparents. They fed me buttery cookies and taught me how to weave yellow wildflowers into a necklace. At the end of the visit, my mama wore her finest traditional regalia, a bright yellow camp dress and a pink shawl with yellow fringe. She draped her neck with the good jewelry, dense strands of seed beads clasped by silver. Mama's bride wore a slim white suit. With a kiss, they were married. On the flight home, when the turbulence frightened me, I held my new mom's hand and she patted my head and promised we'd be safe. I started school on Sioux Island. My family lived between a pig farm to the north and an ocean of corn to the south. The kind of corn that tasted sweet, but didn't taste like corn. No wonder our rent was cheap, because the smell when the wind blew from the north permeated everything. The scent of manure still makes me nostalgic. It's gross, but true. Fortunately, we didn't stay on Sioux land long. My family never stayed anywhere for more than a couple years. Unfortunately, each new land had its own troubles, some worse than others. A boy tried to kiss me on Paiute land, 8th grade. It happened in chess club, 30 minutes of gaming between lunch and 5th period. I joined my first day in the new school because Mama and I often played together. When you're a stranger trying to fit in, it helps to find something familiar and use it as a life raft. Gives you confidence. At least, that's what I've experienced. The chessboards were all different because the students had to bring their own. For a couple minutes, I hesitated in the doorway of the classroom and watched the other club members, who seemed happy to ignore me. I saw this brown-haired white boy named Brandon. He was in my morning math class. Open a polished wooden case, and take out a prehistoric-themed chess set with dinosaur-shaped pieces. Velociraptor pawns, pterodactyl bishops, triceratops knights. The king and queen were both T-Rexes, but the King Rex wore a crown. The dinos were so cute they made me smile, so I stepped up to Brandon's table and said, "Hi, can I play?" He got all serious and replied, "No." Then, when the smile dropped off my face, Brandon grinned like the Cheshire Cat and added, "I'm kidding. Yeah, sure, sit down." It took a moment to work up the enthusiasm for a new smile. That kind of joke bothers me. It's a pet peeve, I guess. Maybe because the punchline is based on the premise that it would be weird to turn down a simple request. But it's not actually weird. I'm well acquainted with the word no. One time, a cheddar-selling woman at an all-local organic grocery store said no when I asked her for a cheese sample. She had a tray of toothpicks, skewered orange cubes, but they were for customers only. And I guess the box of maple sugar candy I just bought didn't count. Another time I had to ask 4 strangers on the school bus, "Can I sit here?" And got 3 no's before somebody moved her backpack from an empty aisle seat and said, "Yes." But Brandon was just being friendly, and he had a dinosaur chess set, and I had no allies yet on Paiute lands. So I chuckled and said, "You got me," and moved a velociraptor to E4. "My name's Grace." "Like the virtue?" he said. Virtue in a weird way, almost like the word had a hidden meaning. Yep. It quickly became clear that about half of chess clubs spent more time on their phones than in the game. But Brandon wasn't part of that half. He timed our moves with the redwood chess clock and only spoke during my turn. Our conversation was therefore full of dramatic pauses, although the spoken content was mundane. Typical nice to meet you stuff. "Where are you from?" he asked. There are hundreds of native tribes, bands, and nations in the United States, and by that time, I'd drifted across dozens of their lands. None, however, had been home. "I moved here from Vermont," I said, remembering the lush green in the Northeast. They were pretty in small doses, but after a while, those mountains made me feel like a rat in a maze, imprisoned by the land itself. From my family's rental cabin in Vermont, it was impossible to see the horizon at sunset. The light just winked out behind a western peak every evening. I started to have nightmares about giants, about the world disappearing in their shadows. "Yeah, but where are you from?" Brandon repeated. And I realized it was that kind of question. "Where are you from, brown-skinned girl?" "Texas," I said. "I am Lip and Apache from the Little Breech Clout Band, Josh Ga Osahe, of the Kunese, my ancestral lands. I return every year for the Day Da Powwow." There was a long silence, but it wasn't Brandon's turn. "Oh," he finally said. "That's interesting." "Where are you from?" I asked. "Florida," he said. "I moved here 6 years ago." "But where are you from?" He laughed. "Okay, funny." "Is it?" I took one of his velociraptors. "Your move." When the bell rang a couple minutes later, Brandon photographed our game board before he collected the pieces. "Can we continue this next time?" he asked. "Uh-huh. See you at Tuesday." Actually, the next time we saw each other was 10 minutes later in 5th period, English. Brandon waved me over to the desk beside his. "Do you have your books yet, Grace?" he asked. "You can share mine." "I'm all set up," I said, but the offer was still appreciated. And that's how it went for several weeks. We'd sit side by side, 3 classes a day, eat lunch at the same table, and every Tuesday and Thursday continue a game of chess that sometimes felt like playing tug-of-war with a clone. Oh, the pieces disappeared one by one, but nobody kept an advantage very long. By week 6, just our kings and a few velociraptors remained. "We can call it a draw," I suggested. Brandon whipped out a pocket-sized spiral notebook and consulted it. "Actually," he said, "based on time, I win. You spent 200 minutes thinking. My time is less than 90. "Congratulations," I said. He stuck out a hand, and it took me a moment to recognize the gesture as an offer to shake. The whole ceremony was a bit much, considering that he won on a technicality. But I didn't want to be a sore loser over a board game. That's not a good look. Then again, insufferable winner is probably a worse look. Okay, I said, laughing. So official. If you want official, he said, there should be a kiss, too. When our hands clasped, he leaned forward, his eyes shut and his lips pursed. I tried to pull away, but Brandon's grip tightened, so I used my free hand to grab him by the chin, halting his lunge just a few inches from my face. Stop, I said. Brandon looked at me with wide eyes. They were a pale shade of brown with a hint of something greenish. I'd never seen them so clearly before, since I rarely make eye contact with anybody. In my family, it's considered rude, not a sign of friendship or trustworthiness. But now, I held his stunned gaze. He started. The chess club people around us were staring, their faces a mixture of amusement and fascination. No offense to chess, but Brandon and I were probably providing the most entertainment they'd ever known in that half hour between lunch and fifth period. Only our supervisor, an English teacher with her nose in a paperback book, was oblivious to the drama. What? I asked. Man, it was just a kiss on the cheek, sore loser. Come on, this isn't about chess. Sure, don't make things weird. The U.S. is puritanical. In Europe, everyone kisses each other. It's literally a handshake. Was he speaking loudly because he was angry, or because he was acutely aware of the audience to our conversation? For future reference, I said, none of that matters. Ask next time. Yeah, there won't be a next time. By his defensive tone, Brandon meant that to be an insult. But I was relieved. No more kisses. Fine with me. At that time, I didn't realize that he was referring to more than unwanted physical contact. Things between us changed. We still sat side by side in class, but whenever our teacher assigned a group project, Brandon turned his back on my desk and waved at a student across the room. He stopped attending chess club, which left me the odd person out. So I stopped attending too. And at lunch, Brandon moved into the center of his friend group and all but ignored me at the edge of the table. It took a couple of weeks of passive-aggressive Brandon before I got that he wanted nothing to do with me anymore. Had we ever really been friends? I convinced myself that it didn't matter. Some people had spring cleaning. I had summer packing. A chance to throw all my belongings into a few cardboard boxes and leave my personal baggage behind. All I had to do was avoid Brandon until the inevitable move in 1 or 2 years. As luck had it, I didn't need to wait that long. In late April, as the school year entered its final stretch in a flurry of pep rallies and cheer that flowed around me but didn't sweep me up, I returned home to a stack of cardboard boxes in the living room. They smelled like ripe fruit and wine. Mama and Mom must have collected them from the liquor store dumpster in the grocery store downtown. We never bought boxes, and in the long run, that probably saved my parents $1,000. Mama popped up from behind a mound of cardboard. Her hair was bound in a high ponytail with a bandana wrapped across her brow. What's this? I asked. You building a fort? Grace, she exclaimed, we're going home. Typically, she faced moves with a somberness appropriate for all the expenses, stress, and unknowns of relocating to a strange new place. But that day, she was beaming. It weirded me out. We have a home? I asked. Always. But now, we can actually live there. I must have seemed confused. That's no surprise, since my emotions tend to shape my face like it's clay under a sculptor's hands. Because she followed with, we're going to Texas, and we're staying. When you say staying, I mean it. Buying a house, starting a garden, getting a dog. Grace, do you know what this means? I did, and I didn't. Home had always seemed beyond our reach, like we were knights chasing the Holy Grail. My mother was born near the border, just a few miles away from the birthplace of her mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, great-great-great-grandmother. Well, you get the point. Since our people didn't have a reservation, though, she had to leave when a flood destroyed her parents' house, and they couldn't afford to stay. When Mama spoke of the warmth and beauty of the desert, she always smiled, if only wistfully. Homesickness followed us across every territory like a ghost that haunted my family of 3. But what would it mean to be still? To stop running? Not from something, but to something. Because it wasn't necessary anymore. Would I be disappointed? Bored? Would I feel trapped like I did every time we lived among mountains? It means change, I guess, I said. But why now? Can we actually afford a house? Did Mom get a job? Mama always said we'd buy our own place when she'd saved up enough money for my college education. And that was a high bar to meet. She hasn't yet, Mama said, but she will. It's time. For a moment, I thought that was all the answer I'd get, but then she continued. I've been thinking about the future of our tribe. Sometimes I wonder if we found a way to be in Texas sooner. Would I be on the council now? Maybe. You shouldn't have to wonder the same thing. It's not too late for you, Mama. You're right. I'm going to throw in my hat for Director of Education. She tilted her head thoughtfully. You'd make a good chairwoman someday. No, I'm too much of a loner for a leadership role, I said. There's nothing wrong with being an introvert. She squeezed my shoulder affectionately. It's not a popularity contest anyway. Well, maybe a little bit. The thing is, a good leader knows our ways and loves our people and is not afraid to fight for them. And you think that's me? Yes, she said. I smiled. There are boxes in your room, Mama said. Don't worry about packing yet, though. We can go slow until summer. A couple boxes a day. When are we actually leaving? She shrugged. Whenever we're ready. Why not tonight, then? I asked. She shook her head, amused. Because somebody needs to finish 8th grade. Fine, guess it's just 6 weeks. 6 weeks of avoiding Brandon and passing classes. Shouldn't be too hard, I figured. I'd just keep doing what I was doing. Unfortunately, the universe had other plans. Our math teacher loved group work as much as our English teacher. Both of them claimed it taught important teamwork and communication skills. That may be true. Honestly, it just taught me to envy people with friends. They did group work in easy mode. Well, after the chess incident, Miss Welton went, Pair up, we're doing worksheets today. I turned to the right, but my usual buddy was absent. Movement caught my eye. From across the room, a hand shot up, and a familiar voice asked, Can I be in a group of 3, Miss Welton? That's Brandon for you. He was the kind of student who didn't wait to be acknowledged before speaking, as if the act of raising his hand was a symbolic gesture. When we were friends, I figured he was too excited about learning to wait, but now I think differently. His quirk lost its charm fast. Who still needs a buddy? Miss Welton asked. I ignored her question, planning to sneakily complete the group worksheet by myself. Wouldn't be the first time. Maybe that's why my plan fell through. Miss Welton expected it. Grace, she asked. Yes? Do you need a buddy? Need? No. Work with Brandon, please. She handed me a single pink worksheet. Great. We had to share. Screech, screech, screech. Brandon's desk made a nails on the chalkboard sound as he scooted it across the tile floor. I'll do odds, he said, and you do evens. All right. I placed the assignment between us. It covered the half-inch gap separating our desktops like a flimsy bridge. The paper made me think about Brandon's chessboard and the slow-motion dinosaur battle that had petered out, unresolved between us. Was Brandon thinking the same thing? About unsettled games? He had whipped out a piece of lined scratch paper and was speeding through an equation, as if racing to the answer. Good idea. The sooner we finish, the better. On your mark, I thought. Get set. Go. At first, Brandon and I kept a similar pace. He answered number 1 as I answered number 2. He answered number 3 as I answered number 4. But as I answered 6, 8, and 10, Brandon remained stuck on 5. That made me nervous because we only had 1 period to do 16 questions, and I didn't want to be penalized because my buddy was too proud or sore or whatever to ask for help. I glanced at question number 5, did some calculations, and said, The answer is C. He hunched over his scratch paper, as if hiding it from the eyes of cheaters. Question 5, I said. The answer is C. I'm working on it. You don't have to, though. I just told you the answer. Okay. I returned to question number 12. About 5 minutes later, he filled in an answer bubble on our shared worksheet. I'm not even kidding. He thought the answer was B. That's not right, I said. It's C. I got B. It's a trick question. I'll go through the calculations with you. Just do your work, he said. Our group work? He hunched over his scratch paper, a signal that our conversation, if you could actually call it a conversation, was over. I stared at the wrong answer, which had been penciled in so confidently it would be difficult to completely erase from the brightly colored sheet. Right, I said. I'm not doing this with you. When I stood, he finally started to say something, but I didn't have time for Brandon's games. I swiped the worksheet off our desks and made a direct line to Miss Welton's desk. My so-called buddy watched me from his chair, mouth agape like I'd just slipped into a clown costume and started dancing around the classroom. "Miss," I said, "I need another group." Miss Welton had an expressive pair of thick black eyebrows. At my request, they shot up behind her red-framed glasses. "Why, Grace?" "Brandon's ignoring me, and I don't want a low grade because of him." She shook her head. "I'll talk to—" "Miss Welton, can you please just give me my own paper?" "I understand it's difficult sometimes," she said, "but in the real world you need to associate with all kinds of people, find ways to get along and work together. It's important." Real world? Did she think that everyone younger than 18 lived in a simulation? I leaned forward and continued in an almost whisper, afraid I'd start shouting otherwise. "Brandon tried to kiss me and I said no. Now he's treating me like garbage. I don't have to work with anybody who disrespects me that way. Ever." I didn't think my math teacher's eyebrows could go any higher, but they managed, somehow. Miss Welton handed me a new pink worksheet. "If you need help finishing on your own," she said, "please let me know." "Thank you." After transferring answers from the old to the new assignment, I returned to the island Brandon had made with our desks. "We're working by ourselves now," I said. "Oh." He just looked at me for a bit like he expected more. An explanation, an accusation, an apology. I gave him nothing. About a minute later, there was a screech, screech, and the space between us widened. During the next group project, Miss Welton let me join a team of 3. My buddies and I finished the assignment 10 minutes early and spent the rest of class talking about superheroes in non-disruptive indoor voices. A few days later, when Miss Welton returned my work, I noticed that she wrote "Great job" beside my grade. I folded the neon pink sheet of paper into a photograph-sized rectangle and tucked it inside my scrapbook of mementos. It was a reminder of my real ally, Paiute Land. All right, guys, that's the first short story in the collection of fictional short stories. This book is definitely focused on those everyday moments that we stand up for ourselves or you do what's right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that short story, and I will see you next time. Have a good day. Bye.